We are, like everyone, incredibly disappointed and frustrated that we find ourselves in this situation.
The Big Ten sending shockwaves through the sports world this week, canceling its fall sports schedules due to the COVID-19 pandemic. College game day for football won't look like this for some time, and college towns will be especially hard hit. Purdue's Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Mike Babinski, will weigh in on the decision and the potential impact.
I'm Mary Rachel Redmond in Fairmont, Indiana, best known as the hometown of James Dean. But one family-son trio is on a mission to make this the next destination location in Grant County. I'll have that story coming up.
And if you're looking for ways to support the black community, one way to do that is through supporting local black-owned businesses. In this month's Trendiana segment, Brittany Smith will showcase what some Hoosier businesses are offering to make cooling off and enjoying the remainder of the summer easier than ever. Details on those stories and much more right ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. For months, sporting events at all levels have been put on hold, delayed, or canceled with the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The latest shoe to drop, the Big Ten Conference this week canceling football and all of its sports schedules for the fall, including conference championships and tournaments. The impact will be far-reaching for college athletic departments and college communities who stand to lose millions of dollars as fans won't be visiting on game day weekends. With more on this week's announcement and the potential impact, I'm pleased, as always, to welcome to the show the Vice President and Director of Intercollegiate Athletics at Purdue University, Mike Babinski. And Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Gary. It's a strange time, but I'm happy to have the opportunity.
Yeah, very difficult indeed. Put in perspective, if you will, what this process has been like for you and the athletic department, the folks who work in the department, but also the players in football and all of the sports impacted by this.
Sure. We're a community in the athletic world that's used to structure. We live in a very season-based, schedule-based environment. There's a lot that's known each and every year. And when that's taken away from you, as it has been now since the middle of March, it creates anxiety. So we've had a group of very anxious coaches, staff, student athletes for a number of months now. During that same time, though, I'm really proud of the way they've handled themselves. They have continued to work, they've continued to prepare. Our staff in particular had put together any number of alternate strategies and protocols to try to find a way through here to be able to compete this fall. Sadly, at the end of the day, that we weren't able to fully execute and see if those would be successful. But it has been, without a doubt, one of the more challenging times, the most challenging time in my working career in college athletics.
Yeah, Mike, I know a number of factors went into the decision. In your view, how big of an issue was liability, venue liability, the possibility of a COVID outbreak or even a death that would come about, and the liability that would result in that? Was that a key in the decision-making process?
Well, I think in every decision that you make in our world these days, liability comes into the equation at some level. The reality is that college athletics, particularly the sport of football, always carries with it a degree of risk. We sadly have had concussion-related issues over many years. There have been paralyzed athletes. People get hurt. Things happen. I think the reality of the risk equation right now in this circumstance is that we just simply don't know enough yet to be able to fairly evaluate the risk. And so I'm certain that as the president's considered this and weighed the advice of medical experts and advisors, that evaluating the risk profile of what we were walking into was certainly part of it.
Certainly the impact of the Big Ten canceling its fall sports schedules will have a big economic impact. Economic impact in communities, college communities like West Lafayette or Bloomington. Earlier this week, we talked with Joe Wade, the CEO of Visit Lafayette, West Lafayette, and got her take on the impact.
Just in direct dollar impacts, it's very easy to say a home football game brings in $2 to $3 million per home game. For 7, over 20 million, and different games bring in a lot more. And then when you start to plug in all the rollover impact, and it's the waitresses making good tips, and then they go out and do other spending and all of that. I think Notre Dame uses more like 20 million per game impact on their community.
So, Mike, obviously big impact in the community. In your athletic department, major impact as well. You've got a lot of fixed costs that you have to deal with. Give us perspective. How significant is this economic, financial impact going to be on the sports, the athletic department there?
Well, it'll be extreme and very real. For instance, our main sources of revenue are all event and activity based. Other than pure philanthropy and donations that we receive from John Purdue Club members, everything else is based on us holding events like football games, like basketball games, and all that spills off of that, whether it be ticket sales, whether it be media rights payments from television agreements, or sponsorships, or concessions. It's all activity based. And when you remove the activity, our economic viability from a revenue perspective walks right out the door with it. So we are in very much a triage mode at this point, trying to figure out how we can trim expenses, trim costs in every conceivable way, look for pockets of reserve dollars or uncommitted funds that we may have somewhere to try to at least get us through to the other side here where activity resumes. We also have launched a very aggressive fundraising campaign called More Than a Game, really appealing to our fan base to help us through what is like the most challenging time in our existence, so that when this does clear, we can come out the other side as strong as we can possibly be and prepared to compete without having this become a multi-year problem. So the financial challenges are extreme. I feel terribly for the community and the impact that this will have on the community, but it's felt here locally in our midst also.
Yeah, Mike, do you anticipate that Purdue and other athletic departments around the conference will need assistance, a bridge funding or financing from the conference or from other sources? Do you think that's a likelihood?
Yes, I really do believe this, and I've shared this with President Daniels and our board of trustees over the last couple of months as we knew this was a possibility, albeit one we hoped would not come to be, that there really aren't enough levers that we can pull and adjustments we can make to cover all the fixed costs that exist at this point. And that will be including having to make some very tough personnel and programmatic reductions here in the near term. There still will be a gap that we'll need some type of financing instrument to get us through this, and where that will come from and how that will be structured is yet to be determined, but it's almost a certainty that will be necessary.
All right, and I know decisions on basketball coming in the weeks ahead. Mike Babinski, the athletic director at Purdue University, really appreciate you taking the time to give us perspective on a very difficult situation. Thanks for being here. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it very much.
Right. Well, the Indiana sports betting industry has begun to rebuild following essentially a 3-month shutdown stemming from the pandemic. The Indiana Gaming Commission reporting this week that bettors waged nearly $71 million in July in the 8 days after major sports resumed. In June, the Indiana sports handle was less than half that amount. PlayIndiana.com analysts suggest Indiana sports books have lost out on nearly $700 million in wagers since sports shut down. Well, it's the dawn of a new era of connectivity in Tipton and southern parts of Howard County as Ellettsville-based Smithville lit up the first of more than 500 homes with high-speed fiber-based internet this week. We get details on the $2.7 million project and why it's especially important for farmers and educators from Smithville President Paul Quick. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegion, pioneering safety. Well, broadband connectivity continues to be a big issue in Indiana, especially in rural areas of the state. Things improved this week in Tipton and Howard counties as Smithville lit up the first of some 500 homes with fiber connectivity. Now, the broadband company says the expansion, which was announced on the Bayard family farm in northern Tipton County, represents a $2.7 million investment. Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch participated in the event as the project was partially funded by the state's Next Level Broadband Initiative. Smithville President Paul Quick tells me the expansion helps close the rural digital divide.
The expansion of rural broadband in Indiana means if I live in Tipton County or Howard County, I can have the same experience as someone who lives in Indianapolis, Chicago, or Louisville. I can have a great, reliable, secure internet experience that matches anything I can get anywhere else in the United States. We're very fortunate because the state of Indiana is willing to make some investments to make sure that the people in rural communities have strong, reliable, secure internet.
Quick says in addition to the new network, Smithville also is upgrading some existing customers in the area near Sharpsville to fiber connectivity. We'll move over James Dean. Fairmount, Indiana is starting to attract attention for another reason.
So it's the kind of thing where you want to either grab your spouse or grab some friends and, let's go off to the middle of nowhere and try this place we've been hearing about.
A budding business with a catchy name. Around Indiana, reporter Mary Rachel Redmond takes us to Grant County to check out Bad Dad Brewing. That's when we come back. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Brought to you by Chapman Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing. The man for all seasons, Chapman. ChapmanHeating.com. Well, the BP Whiting Refinery in Northwest Indiana planning to cut an unspecified number of jobs. Our partners at the Times of Northwest Indiana report the London-based energy company made the decision after reporting a $16.8 billion loss in the second quarter. CEO Bernard Looney announced the company would cut in total around 10,000 jobs worldwide, most by the end of the year. BP Whiting currently employs around 1,700 workers, about half of which are represented by the United Steelworkers. In Northeast Indiana, a New Haven-based copper processing company is rebranding as it nears completion of a $16 million plant expansion. Now known as SDI Lafarga Copper Works, the plant reclaims scrap copper, refines it, then produces copper rod and wire. The company says the expansion will add workers and allow it to produce copper 24 hours a day. SDI Lafarga is a joint venture between Fort Wayne-based Steel Dynamics and the Lafarga Group based in Barcelona, Spain. Manchester University has joined the Great Lakes Esports Conference, adding intercollegiate games for students as it enters a second season of competitive esports. The school in North Manchester, currently a member of the National Association of Collegiate Esports, and conference play begins in September. In addition to intercollegiate competition, the university also offers the recreational Manchester Gaming Society. Esports really gaining in popularity. Well, Fairmount, Indiana, it's synonymous with Hollywood legend James Dean. But a father and his two sons are determined to be another reason folks stop in Fairmount. Around Indiana, reporter Mary Rachel Redmond made the trip to Grant County to check out Bad Dad Brewery and all it has to offer.
It all started when brothers Patrick and Derek Henry were growing up.
When everybody else was out on family vacations and such during the summer, we were working. All the good dads let their kids have fun, and ours makes us work.
And that bad dad is Barry Howard, the namesake of Bad Dad Brewing. A corporate man for 20 years with a side hobby, home brewing, something he happened to be pretty good at.
You start at home, it's a lot of fun. You make people smile, and then suddenly, gosh, how can I do this bigger and larger? And that's just kind of how we get started.
And his sons thought so too. So much so, they decided to go into business together.
So like a lot of people, it starts from being a home brewer and then saying, you know what, I can do this, and enough people telling you that you can. Well, it just so happened that he makes awesome beer, and he was able to teach Derek and I to be able to do that as well. We're a family of entrepreneurs, being able to have us start where he left off, being able to grow and do our own thing.
And it's been a recipe for success. Earlier this year, Visit Indiana voted Bad Dad as the best brewery in the state.
It's been incredible. Our beers, especially our core four, we can hardly keep them in stock.
And perhaps it's the dadisms on the cans themselves that make them stand out. Tapestry of Obscenity is special to Bad Dad. Why is that?
It's actually a reference to A Christmas Story.
In the heat of battle, my father wove a tapestry of obscenity that, as far as we know, is still hanging in space over Lake Michigan.
Now, also on these cans, you said there's bad dad jokes?
Yes.
Okay, read me one.
What do you mix an elephant and a rhino?
No idea.
Elephino.
And it's actually the pizzeria part of the business that's boosted Bad Dad's beer sales, even getting them some international love.
We got recognized in Pizza Today, which is the largest pizza magazine in the United States, and it is distributed internationally. And we were put in there as one of the featured destinations, which was a really big honor for us. Fun to get the name out there from such a small town.
Pizza and beer are just the perfect combination. So they actually feed each other. And it's really, because of those two things, that's why this is really taken off as a destination location.
And that's the ultimate goal. While Fairmount is best known as the hometown of James Dean, the boys at Bad Dad's are on a mission to make their brewery another reason to stop and visit.
We want to be a state player, specifically in the central Indiana to northern Indiana market. We want to be known for great beer and great pizza and an all-in-one stop.
A destination location to really make this a place that people want to travel to.
And don't let the name fool you. This Bad Dad couldn't be more proud of his sons.
So as a dad, obviously that makes you feel really good. So they definitely have the entrepreneurial spirit, and it's the kind of thing where you don't have to tell them what to do, they know what needs to be done. It's a lot of work, but there's a lot of pride that not only you can see what you create, but then see your sons to participate in that as well. So.
And working with Dad isn't so bad.
Love my dad.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, great story from Grant County. Thank you. Well, the Black Lives Movement has created an increase in traffic for Black-owned businesses in Indiana, places like the Brain Layer in South Bend and Tease Me Cafe in Indianapolis. Yelp's Brittany Smith joins us next with how you can show your support in this month's Trendiana Report.
To give a shout out to all of you guys for just being amazing customers, and yeah, like it's just been awesome rocking with you guys.
She is a basketball legend. Tamika Catchings made her mark on the court, and now she's experiencing success in another arena, the business world. Catchings opened Tease Me Cafe in Indianapolis nearly 10 years ago. Hers is one of several Black-owned businesses that we're profiling in this month's Trendiana segment. The Black Lives Matter movement has given Black-owned businesses in Indiana a big boost. In fact, according to Yelp, interest has increased by more than 7,000% compared to last year. Yelp's Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith joins us now with details in this month's Trendiana segment. Brittany, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Yeah, I mentioned, and we should mention, this is Black-Owned Business Month, so the timing of our segment here is especially good. But I mentioned those big numbers, 7,000% increase in interest in Black-owned businesses. That's really a phenomenon you're seeing around the state of Indiana.
Yeah, and this is just the tip of the iceberg of great Black-owned businesses you can support throughout the state this month and every month. And in response to that huge results that we were seeing, we actually created a searchable attribute. So you can go to the Yelp app and look up Black-owned businesses, whether you're here locally or on the go, and continue to support those businesses.
All right, you've put together a great list of some Black-owned businesses around the state of Indiana. We begin right here in Indianapolis, and we teased this a minute ago, but Tease Me Cafe, Tamika Catchings, has been in this business now for a number of years, nearly 10 years, and really doing a great job.
Yeah, and this is actually one of the few dedicated tea businesses you can find in central Indiana, right there in the Heron Morton neighborhood downtown. It is a beautiful business, really fun and welcoming vibes. Right now they're offering curbside pickup as well and a patio space for those who maybe don't want to go inside. But some of the options that really stand out there in the reviews are their ginger peach tea, their spinach salad. They have some delicious baked goods, a really fun business for those who are looking to try something new.
The craft brewery business, the industry, if you will, in Indiana continues to be very strong. In Northwest Indiana, 18th Street Brewery is located or has locations in Hammond, Gary, also here in Indianapolis, and they are doing some good things as well.
Yes, this is opened in 2010 by owner Drew Fox, and it's known as being a brewery, but they've also got a lot of attention for having really impressive food to go along with those drinks. Some of the items that have really stood out is their 18th Street Burger, the pork belly ramen. They've even got attention from USA Today for having incredible food to go with their beers. They have some outdoor spaces as well as curbside and carry out, so a variety of ways that you can be supporting each of these businesses.
Frozen treats are certainly in vogue as the summer winds down. TJ's Sweet Tooth is located here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, on West 86th Street. And they actually recently made our list of the 2020 data spots for the best frozen treats in every state. They are very photogenic treats. So when you see the pictures of them, they've got an ice cream sandwich inside of a donut. They've got a lemon Oreo ice cream, some really creative spins on some frozen treats, and a good way to put a cherry on top for the end of the summer.
Yeah, and you know, consumers are getting creative during the pandemic here, and that really leads us to Make It Classy, which really fits into some of the lifestyles that have been created during the pandemic.
Yes, Victoria Davis is making these items herself, but shipping them throughout the state and beyond. I know a lot of people are looking for creative ways to send birthday gifts or to create DIY spa experiences. She even has DIY kits where you can make your own scrubs. And some of them that especially scream summer are the pink grapefruit body bar, as well as a body scrub that's made with avocado oil and matcha. And they're offering free shipping on items over $40 right now.
Okay, we got to be quick on this one. Our last stop is the Brain Layer Bookshop in South Bend.
Yes, this is opened by a former school librarian, Kathy Burnett. They've been selling tons of books right now, especially in an increase in requests for anti-racist books and educational materials. You can shop online and support them if you're not in South Bend. Just another great business to support.
Oh, great tour around the state, looking inside some black-owned businesses around Indiana. Brittany Smith from Yelp. As always, great report. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks so much, Gary.
All right. Well, ahead in our next half hour, when Johnson Memorial in Franklin began laying the groundwork for a $47 million expansion, it included a new emergency department. No one imagined it would open up during a pandemic. It did. We'll have that story when we return. Well, a new emergency department at Johnson Memorial Health in Franklin is seeing its first patients. Johnson County is the third fastest growing county in the state. So hospital leaders say the new ER was desperately needed to keep pace with community needs. Business of Health reporter Kyle has more.
Thank you, Gary. While the ER is a major piece of the $42 million investment, the project also includes new areas for outpatient services, physical therapy, and orthopedics. It's the largest expansion in the hospital's history, and the ER certainly had an interesting path to opening, which included a scramble at the 11th hour to switch the ER to a temporary COVID-19 isolation unit. Joining me now to tell us more is Johnson Memorial's President and Chief Executive Officer, Dr. David Dunkel. Dr. Dunkel, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure. So Johnson Memorial, it's the only full-service hospital in Johnson County, and a major goal for this project, which really has reshaped the entire campus, is to keep care local. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We did a study back in 2016 with the consultants who really talked about how much the county was growing, not just all of Johnson County, but also Franklin. Franklin was building homes, building a lot of infrastructure, and basically they said the hospital facilities weren't big enough to keep up with the population growth. Our emergency room was too small. Our outpatient areas also need to be expanded. So that's when we decided that in order to better meet the needs of the community, we had to expand. And we decided to build a new emergency department, expand capacity from 15 to 26 rooms, add some decontamination areas, increase the ability of our trauma rooms to better care for seriously injured patients by installing things like special lifts. We really did not want people to leave our area and to have confidence that we could meet all of their needs.
Okay, so let's talk about the new ER, and wow, what a path it had to opening. COVID comes down the pipe. Talk about how your staff really had to put their pedal to the metal and open it, but not as an ER, as a COVID isolation unit. Can you take us back to that time?
Sure. You hate to say you got lucky at all during this COVID period, but we were supposed to open in January of this year, the ER, but there were some delays, which again, a project that size isn't unprecedented. But as COVID began to hit in early March, we were still quite some time from being done with the complete project. And we originally were going to finish the lab area first, then medical imaging, and then the ER. But we kind of talked about the fact that if we diverted all of our resources just to the emergency department, could we get this area up and running, but not as an emergency department, but as a COVID unit? And we did that. I can't tell you how proud I was of my hospital, of my organization. It was all departments coming together, from IT to respiratory therapy, the doctors, the nurses, construction crews, all getting that area ready, that really enabled us to take care of up to 24, 25 COVID patients at one time in an isolated area away from the rest of the hospital with a different air handling system. So it put people at ease. If you remember back in March, we didn't know as much about COVID as we did now, and people were afraid.
Yeah, you mentioned it was really almost like a morale boost for your medical staff, who, like you said, it was very scary at the time.
Yeah, they were. I said it to my board members, you could feel the difference on Monday. We opened the unit on a Friday, and walking through the hospital halls on Monday, there were a lot of smiling faces. Not just that I think people were proud of what we'd come together to accomplish, but also the fact that the rest of the hospital truly felt safe knowing those COVID patients were being taken care of in their own isolated area.
Right, okay, let's talk about this partnership with the Boone County Emergency Medicine to staff and manage the ER. Why did the hospital decide to go that route?
Well, I'll be honest, there's several reasons. A lot of hospitals our size do outsource emergency services. We had done this for many years, and we decided to bring it in-house, and it just didn't work out that well. As people know, it's more than just the medicine care. There's the billing and the coding that is so much a part of hospital reimbursement. And to be honest, we just didn't have the internal knowledge needed to really master that. And luckily, the Boone County Emergency Medicine Medical Director, a fellow physician MBA, Dr. Tom Henniff, reached out to me, and we were very like-minded. And as I did more research into their group, nationally renowned for their door-to-doctor time, multiple awards for customer satisfaction, it really was kind of a no-brainer. I wanted to be with a group of all board-certified emergency medicine physicians, a group that knew how to do emergency medicine, because again, I had this great new building, and I thought, it's more than just a building, it's the people inside. I want to be able to deliver the highest quality of care I could to our community.
So this is just a few seconds left, but you talked a little bit off camera how margins are slim for hospitals right now, especially those the size of Johnson Memorial. How do you balance that with also needing to reinvest in yourself?
It's difficult, but again, if you're not growing, you're dying, as they say. So we've been very fiscally responsible for many years. Again, we saved a lot of money before building this project. We didn't rely on tax dollars. So with margins being small, we do have to look at what's the best things we can invest in. In this case, it was a new emergency department, outpatient services. But there's some things we can offer. We don't have a cath lab. We don't have radiation oncology on campus. I hope to have those someday. But again, it's tough. It's tough out there. I think the average margin for hospitals right now in Indiana is over -8%.
Yeah, it is a tough time. Thank you for being on the show today. Congratulations on the expansion. I live nearby and it looks fantastic. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, a new poll conducted by the American Lung Association in Indiana shows more than half of regular casino visitors support a smoke-free environment in the Hoosier State. It's a step already taken by at least 2 casinos. The survey shows 70% of registered voters polled support prohibiting smoking in public places like bars, restaurants, and casinos. The French Lick Resort and Casino and the Four Winds Casino in South Bend instituted a tobacco-free environment as they prepared to reopen amid the COVID-19 pandemic shutdown. When asked specifically about tobacco use in casinos, 65% of voters in favor of prohibiting smoking and vaping inside casinos. In an interview with Inside Indiana Business, American Lung Association in Indiana Advocacy Director Nick Torres said he sees the results as a business opportunity.
You know, we've got smoke-free states on either side of us in Illinois and Ohio. And so, you know, taking the opportunity to think of the ways that Indiana values being business friendly and looking ahead at new industries and growing the gaming market here. But really the public, I think, is on board with smoke-free in general, whether it comes to bars, casinos, clubs. Trying to improve the health of Hoosiers is obviously our goal. And by decreasing secondhand smoke exposure, you know, that's a big part of that when it comes to entertainment options.
Torres said more than 150 casinos nationwide have implemented new smoke-free policies, and that the conversation should include not only health factors, but the economic implications. Torres believes new smoke-free policies should also include e-cigarettes. Still ahead, 10 is the big number for WGU Indiana. 10 years in business, which is translated into 10,000 graduates. Next, we catch up with WGU Indiana Chancellor Allison Bell to discuss the university's evolution, its role as a resource during COVID-19, and what's next. And capturing images of Indiana's iconic high school basketball gyms, 7 years, 50,000 miles, and 400,000 digital frames later, photographers Chris Smith and Michael Keating have created the Hoosier Hardwood Project. They join us next to share their journey inside Indiana sports. Well, for the past decade, WGU Indiana says it has transformed online learning in the state by bringing quality, affordable, flexible higher education to non-traditional learners. Since its inception in 2010, nearly half of all WGU students have been first-generation college students, with more than 80% working full or part-time while earning their degree. This month, WGU marking a big milestone, 10,000 graduates over the past 10 years. And for more, I'm pleased to be joined by WGU Chancellor Allison Bell. And Allison, as always, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Hi, Gary.
Big celebration. The 10s are wild, right? 10-year anniversary, 10,000 students. And I mentioned in the introduction there, you can make the case that WGU Indiana's arrival 10 years ago, it's really kind of been at the forefront of this online learning wave that we continue to see.
Yeah, I like to think so, and just very excited about the impact we've been able to make over the last 10 years. 10,000 graduates, we've got more than 5,000 students enrolled right now, so really pleased to be a part of the solution and helping Hoosiers just get the training that they need to move on and get into their careers.
Yeah, as you look at the online or the higher educational landscape in Indiana, WGU Indiana, I think, fits a niche, if you will, online competency-based learning. And these, you know, a lot of people who perhaps they started college, it did not finish for some reason. They're in a job. They want to get that degree as well. So it really certainly serves a niche in our state, and that includes around the state of Indiana.
It does, and we always have. You know, we were designed with the student in mind, particularly those adults that need to return to complete their degree, though not exclusively those students, primarily those students. What I love is what I've heard our president, Scott Pulsifer, say many times is that while we weren't built for a pandemic, because we were built with students in mind and because of our competency model, our flexibility, our fully online model, we're just what people need in circumstances like this.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, because during the pandemic, have you seen perhaps a lot more interest, certainly individuals who are using this as an opportunity to upgrade their skills, to get more education turning to WGU because of the online nature of the school?
Definitely. I mean, there's some volatility just because this is unprecedented, right? And so I think people are watching to see what happens, but we know that more than 30% of people who have had some impact to their career because of COVID are saying that they anticipate needing to return to get additional education. And then most of those people say they think they'll need either a hybrid or an online model just because it's what they can do right now with the way things are shifting and changing all the time.
And it would seem to me that WGU Indiana playing a big role too in the state's focus to get 2/3 of the workforce with education, credentials, education beyond high school too. This is another very viable option for people.
That's right. That's right.
All right, 10,000 graduates. You're using this opportunity, 10 years here in Indiana as well, to hand out some $10,000 scholarships as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, we're so excited. This too is unprecedented. We've always been generous. You know, last year we gave away nearly $1 million in scholarships to Hoosiers, and this year it's our goal to exceed that. And one of the ways we're doing that is by giving our largest single scholarship campaign away. And so we've given away one of our 10 scholarships at $10,000, and it truly covers most of the expense of tuition for a student who's awarded that scholarship.
Going forward, looking forward to the next 10 years, what in your view is going to be key? I know WGU Indiana has made a real push to really reach out and connect in every county in the state of Indiana, but as you look to the future, what in your view is the vision, is what's next for WGU Indiana?
Well, there are a couple of things. One thing that is really important to all of us at WGU and in Indiana is access to high-speed internet. You know, we can't educate people if they're not able to get connected. And I know that there are more than 600,000 Hoosiers that don't have the high-speed internet connection, whether it be because they're in rural spots that don't have the connectivity or in urban settings and they can't afford the connectivity. So we're working to solve that problem with, we have scholarship opportunities that will help to support that, and also working with our state leadership to look at the state infrastructure. So that's something that's of utmost importance to us right now. Other things that we're looking at, as you mentioned, to increase the level of education of Hoosiers, it's not just offering bachelor's and master's degrees, though we do that. We are moving into the space of offering other credentials and working with employers and with Ivy Tech on looking at how we can break down learning by skills so we can start to assess credit earned through training and other real-life experiences at a skills level, so students can start to talk about their education that comes from all kinds of different experiences, and it just empowers them to move forward.
WGU, 10 years in Indiana, 10,000 graduates. Chancellor Allison Bell, thank you for joining us, and congratulations on the milestone.
Thank you so much for having me today. Thanks.
Well, still ahead, we reintroduce you to Pattern, an Indianapolis nonprofit that promotes and supports the fashion and apparel community. We'll show you how it has expanded its reach over the years and contributed to economic development. Plus, basketball wasn't born in Indiana, but one could argue it was nurtured and raised here. Up next, we introduce you to the Hoosier Hardwood Project. It's a 7-year journey by 2 talented photographers snapping images of the state's historic high school gym. Well, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and these images really pretty much sum up Indiana's passion and love for the game of basketball. It's called the Hoosier Hardwood Project, and it's taken 7 years, 50,000 miles traveling around the state, and some 400,000 digital frames to bring it to life. If you're looking for a break from pandemic-related information, and who isn't, then perhaps a trip through Indiana basketball history could offer a much-needed respite. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill?
Gary, thanks. And that break might be found by turning the pages of Chasing Indiana's Game, the Hoosier Hardwood Project, a collection of photographs and essays about more than 100 gymnasiums that have hosted Indiana basketball over the years. And joining me today to discuss the book, to be released by Indiana University Press next week, are photojournalist and co-authors Chris Smith and Michael King. And gentlemen, welcome to the program. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Chris, we're going to start with you because the genesis of this book was back in 2013, and you saw a photograph of your father, who was the student manager for the 1937 team in Versailles, Indiana, and the light went on. You, a career photojournalist, you thought, I need to get some more of these. Just talk about how that all came about.
Well, we all like to pursue personal projects, and I found this photograph of my father's high school basketball team, the Versailles Frenchies, and in the picture you could see the gym in the background. I thought, well, I wonder if that gym's still around. It'd be interesting to kind of go photograph some old high school basketball gyms in Indiana, knowing what an important place they'd played in the state's history. And I had worked with Michael through my employment at Northern Kentucky University, and I asked him if he wanted to go photograph a few basketball gyms, and that's how we started.
Yeah, and then more than a few, because I think you've gone to 300 gyms. And Michael, just talk about, with this, again, this incredible number of historic basketball places in Indiana. I mean, how do you begin to even cut it down to a manageable number for the book?
Well, at the end of the day, probably the best parts of the book are left on the cutting room floor. Not really. But we probably could do at least a couple more books based on just things that did not make it into this book. But I think what we looked at here when we were putting this book together, if you look page to page and facing pages and turning them, each of these pictures on the facing pages have sort of a kinship. It may be in tone or in color or in contrast, from meaning that one could be in a barn and another might be in a grand gym somewhere in Indiana, some high school gym. And so I think that we tried to pace and position the pictures so that they had a rhythm along with the words that went with them. And most every place that we've been, we have an interesting story to tell, so that you end up in the middle of the book. In my section, the book's divided into two sections. Chris's photographs are in the first half. I'm in the second half. And he got to be first. He drove the car. So, but in my section, there's an essay about the field house in Newcastle. And I was there for a sectional championship game between Connersville and Newcastle. The place was jam-packed full, nearly 8,000 people there. And it really showcased the whole idea of what Indiana basketball has been and what it still is at certain times of the year when you get the tournament.
Yeah, and Chris, I mean, Michael mentions grand gyms in Newcastle, but Seymour, Southport, I mean, we have some of the largest, in fact, I think 9 of the 10 largest high school gymnasiums in the country. But we also have grand, smaller places that took on life bigger than life, like the Hoosiers gym over in Knightstown.
Right. And we have a history of great architecture in these gyms. We discovered a number in southern Indiana that were actually sunken gyms. In other words, that most of the gym was built underground, kind of an architectural philosophy that came from an architect down in the southwest part of the state. And, it spread all the way from the Newcastles all the way down to some barns that we photographed where players got together on the weekends to shoot. So we've kind of covered the gamut here.
Well, and we need to point out that it will be released by IU Press this week. It was part of the Indiana Historical Society's bicentennial exhibit. So we wish you both the best. And again, I can't wait to get my copy as I spend a nice afternoon leafing through Indiana hardwood history. So it's called Chasing Indiana's Game, the Hoosier Hardwood Project. Chris Smith and Michael Keating, we appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
And Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, this week, Indianapolis-based Simon Property Group is reporting second quarter funds from operations of $746 million. That's down from $1.1 billion during the same period last year. Now, the results follow a report that Simon is in talks with Amazon.com to convert empty space at its malls, specifically former JCPenney stores, into last-mile distribution hubs. Simon did not make mention of any talks with Amazon in its earnings report. In fact, neither company has made an official comment on that potential partnership. Well, a Central Indiana nonprofit is making a diverse and broad impact in the community. Pattern had planned on opening its sewing production facility, Stitchworks, to local designers in March, but shifted focus when the pandemic hit and began producing gowns and masks, PPE. Stitchworks is also working on launching the city's only industrial sewing certificate program. The long-term goal to operate as a full-time cut and sew facility to keep production in Indiana instead of overseas. And for more, I'm pleased to welcome back to the show Pattern co-founder and Stitchworks director, Polina Osharov. And Polina, as always, welcome to the show. Great to see you. Unfortunately, it's virtually, but great to see you.
Well, you too. It's always good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Pattern, your brainchild, launched 10 years ago, so celebrating 10 years in business, which is quite an accomplishment. But talk about the mission, Pattern Magazine, and the initiative and various initiatives you have at Pattern to really promote fashion and the creative class apparel in Indiana. Talk about really the mission.
Absolutely. So our mission is to grow the local creative economy, as you noted, and provide a platform for creative expression for young, up-and-coming creatives of all kinds. We consider ourselves a growth accelerator for the creative economy, and we do that in a number of ways, and Stitchworks is just one of those programs.
Yeah, I should mention, because really through your efforts, you have shined a light really and uncovered a lot of the creative talent that exists here that maybe people don't know about.
Definitely. I think that Indianapolis, I've discovered, has so many incredibly talented people, and we are happy to provide, I guess, an outlet for them through the magazine, both the print and the digital, and some of the events that we do, and some of the other programming that we have.
Very good, and helping to generate jobs and investment here in Central Indiana instead of elsewhere. Let's talk about Stitchworks now, because this another initiative you had. You're very excited about it. I'm sure you're going to launch in March, and then the pandemic hit and forced things to change. Talk about the idea behind Stitchworks and how you've kind of shifted gears a bit.
Sure. So Stitchworks actually has been a concept that's been in the making for a really long time, almost as long as the organization has been around. The idea there is to provide a resource for local fashion designers to be able to have their collections made. Instead of making it themselves, they can bring it to a place and have everything sewn. At this point, people have to ship things to other countries like China, for example, or other parts of the country here. And so we don't have anything like that. We've been wanting to make something like that happen. And finally, through a grant from the Ellen Whitehill Clues Charitable Foundation, we were able to launch a pilot. And we were getting ready to open to the public in late March when COVID happened. And very quickly, almost a week later, through some very fortuitous happenings, we were able to pivot and get into a contract with Eskenazi Health to make 2,500 isolation gowns for them. So that happened very, very quickly. We mobilized close to 100 stitchers. Wow. To make this happen in a very, very short amount of time. It was a pretty steep learning curve, but I definitely consider it a silver lining of everything that's happened.
Yeah, and only have about 45 seconds left, Polina, but this has turned into a real business opportunity for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's lots of opportunities here, and we hope to help uncover those for all the local economic development folks.
Very good. Stitchworks, a growing entity now, and Pattern. Again, congratulations, Polina, on 10 years for Pattern. It has made an impact, and I know it will continue to make an impact going forward. Polina Osharov is the co-founder and executive director at Pattern. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
And I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Coming up next week, Indiana Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger joins us to talk about how Indiana's economic development efforts are faring during the pandemic. And a $1 million Lilly Endowment grant will help Anderson University establish a new Center for Security Studies and Cyber Defense. How the center will help students focus on national, homeland, and cybersecurity policy and professional ethics from a Christian faith perspective. Those stories and a lot more next week. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.